Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Coordinator of Officiating Services with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is Football Officiating Training Tape number 8. This is our last one for the season as we head into the postseason starting on Tuesday. We've had a really nice season so far, really good stuff that we've seen out there, but we can always improve and tweak some things and be on our best performance or be at our best performance as we head into the postseason. So when we look at these plays, again, not picking on any one team or player or crew or official, just trying to learn from these plays and develop our skill set and really fine tune again, as I said, as we head into the postseason. So keep up the good work. And with that, let's look at some plays. On this play, we've talked about football IQ and clock awareness and management in the past, and this is just a really good example of that. So you see we have not very much time to go in the second quarter, so time is certainly a factor. And you'll see that the back judge comes into the referee, has a conversation. The clock is stopped at 48 seconds, and they're discussing how much time should be on the game clock relative to the play clock and what is the status of that clock. And so that's part of this conversation. And the back judge does an excellent job of picking up on this discrepancy, giving the information to the referee who makes the announcement. And you'll see after the announcement, the game clock goes back to 105. And we'll go back to the start of the play here, and you'll see that we start at 110, ultimately gets tackled, roughly 107, 106, somewhere in that neighborhood. And we always instruct our play clock operators to start, and back judges, most of the time, you're the ones running the play clock. 1,000, 1,000, start the play clock. And so by that philosophy of how we're doing that, that would put the game clock to be at 105. And what happened in this situation is the back judge picked up that the game clock and the play clock were not properly started. Actually, the play clock was not actually started on time. So therefore, there was a lag, and it would have resulted in a time advantage. And so the back judge came in, killed the clock. And as we've said, anytime we see something unusual or wrong, whether it's penalty enforcement or clock or anything, it's just like the airport. If you see something, say something. The back judge does that here, comes in, says that the play clock was not started properly in conjunction with the game clock, and therefore reset the game clock back to 105, 40 seconds on the play clock, and then referee would start both on the ready for play. So this is excellent clock awareness, game management, situational handling. This is just really, really good by the back judge and this crew. Just having that IQ, and what that means is back judges, especially, as soon as this play is over, he got his eyes to the play clock and the game clock to see what they were. And when one didn't start properly, he was able to give definitive information to the referee. So this is excellent game management by the back judge. On this one, I want to talk about our mechanics and philosophy relative to forward and backward passes. So you see this one is really tight, whether it's forward or backward. Again, our philosophy is we don't want to have cheap turnovers. We want to make sure that they're for sure a solid turnover or potential turnover. Yet at the same time, we want to be deliberate and purposeful in our decision making and our mechanics so that we can let it play out. Because if we play this out as backwards and we're not sure, we can always get together and say, you know what, that was forward, blow it incomplete, fix the game clock. But if we're sure one way or another, then make a decision, certainly. But if we're not sure, can let it play out, decide later that it's forward. That's totally fine. But this one is really tight, and just mechanically, remember, in most cases, the line of scrimmage official opposite is going to be primary, not only, just primary, and the closest official, the covering official on the bottom of the screen in this case would be the secondary. However, this is so tight and there's so many players between that opposite wing and this play, we would say that this would be primary to the covering official side at the bottom of the screen. And you see it leaves the quarterback's hands at roughly the 34-yard line, 33 and a half, and then ends up about the 34 and a half. So I would say this is definitely a backwards pass, and I think we play this out mechanically correctly as well as judgment. But just keep in mind our mechanics on forward and backward. Make sure we're on the same page with both line of scrimmage officials and umpires and referees. You should only get involved in these plays from a feedback standpoint. We don't want you being primary on these types of plays. This should be handled by the line of scrimmage entirely. So good, slow, deliberate mechanics. Primary, bottom of the screen, forward or backward. Make sure we punch. And then if we're not sure, we can certainly let it play out as a backwards pass and sort it out later as forward. But ultimately, I think it's backward, and we handle this play correctly. So well done mechanically by the crew on this play. Okay, on this one, it's 4th and 2, and you'll see that the offense is all set in formation to run a play, and then they're going to do a mass substitution. First thing, in high school football, remember, we don't have a matchup rule or provision. So if the offense substitutes late or those types of things, the defense doesn't have an opportunity to match up with a sub. They would have to sub, if they want to, in that same window of time that the offense were to sub. If the offense were to sub, get in, get set, snap the ball, and the defense were to have a 12th player out there, we should shut that down for an illegal substitution. So that's the first thing. Second thing, when we do things like this on offense, we need to be held to the letter of the rule. We're going to be really lenient when it comes to formations and false start. We're not going to be super picky if they flinch barely that no one can see. That's not what we're looking for when it comes to false start or other offensive pre-snap fouls. However, when they do things like this that are clearly designed to confuse or potentially draw the defense into encroachment, then we would need to hold them to the letter of the rule. And if you watch this, I believe many of the players that are subbing, leaving the field, don't simulate the start of the play, therefore not a full start. So I think almost all the players do this correctly. The only player that is a problem is the snapper. So if we go back and look at it here again, take a close look at the snapper. He waits until everybody substitutes, and that's great. And we go in order. The split end goes, then the tackle, and then the guard. But if you notice, the snapper leaves the ball. And if you take a look at Rule 713, once the ball is ready for play and after the snapper touches the ball, the snapper shall not remove their hands from the ball. And in this case, he turns around to become, I believe, an up back on the punt team. So this would be a foul for a false start. Because you notice right there that the defensive tackle right in front of the snapper actually reaches out and grabs the ball and then puts it back. So if we don't call the false start on the snapper here, then we really are kind of obligated to call encroachment on this defensive player. See how he reaches out and grabs the ball there? So this has to be a false start. Again, when they do unusual type things, like a late substitution like this on fourth down is really unusual, then we need to hold them to the letter of the rule, both subs and shifts, as well as false start. And when the snapper removes his hands from the ball like this, this should be a false start. Okay, and this one we had just talked about making sure that if a team does something unusual, outside the norm, we're going to hold them to the letter of the rule. This is just a regular scrimmage down here, 1st and 10, nothing unusual about this at all. And in this case, we don't need to be as technical relative to the rule. So when we're talking about a false start, we need some action that clearly is simulating the start of the play in advance of the snap. If we have to slow down the video and go tick, 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 frame by frame to find it, then that's not enough for a false start. Of course, something in slow motion always looks worse, but if you watch in real time, the receiver at the bottom of the screen, he starts to lean, but almost within a quarter of a second, half a second perhaps, the ball is snapped. So this is a little bit too technical for a false start. The ball is away as the movement is occurring, and the receiver doesn't even take a step. His upper body is moving forward a little bit, but it's almost simultaneous with the snap. So let's make these big. Let's make them obvious on these pre-snap fouls. Let's not get overly technical. Make sure it's clearly action that is simulating the start of the play in advance of the snap to have a false start. So this action at the bottom of the screen, in real time, we have to slow it down frame by frame, would not be enough for a false start. So this is a little bit too technical. Let's slow down. Again, make all of our fouls big and quality fouls that are obvious. On this play, we have an example of one we would want called for a false start. So you'll notice the personal protector, the up back there, falls forward at the snap. This action is clearly simulating the start of the play, and therefore should be penalized as a false start and not as a shift. So this is well done by the referee in this case. Referee, this would be your primary responsibility to have vision on the personal protectors, the up backs, prior to the snap and as the play develops. So this is well done to pick up this action and call it as a false start. There is some confusion or some thoughts out there that a up back like this, if they were to make a movement like this, that they would have an opportunity to reset. And I would say that that would be true if it is a natural fluid motion and it is an actual shifting type motion, such as they're going to shift and go into motion. They're going to move forward and then subsequently shuffle their feet so that they are moving sideways at the snap, those types of things. In this particular case, that's not what happens. He just is not intending to shift, he's just falling forward. And to me, this simulates the start of the play, which would draw a reaction from defensive players. So therefore, this action is enough for a false start and is properly called by the referee. So this is well done, judgment and mechanics. On this play, we have quite a number of things going on. So we have a deep pass, and you'll see the receiver goes down, and we're going to have 2 flags. So let's talk mechanics first. So this is going to be back judge's primary. Line of scrimmage, let's come to a stop when this action is about to occur, because the goal line is not going to be your primary responsibility anyways. It's going to be the back judge's responsibility. So let's come to a stop. Back judges, if you can come to a stop as well, that would be ideal. And then we need to finish the play. So we signal just regular stop the clock. The result of this play is an incomplete pass. So we need to indicate that by signaling incomplete pass. So that's what I mean by finishing the play. And then secondly, we have multiple flags. So let's get together, have a conversation, make sure that we have the same thing, and then we can put them in the same place if we do in fact have the same foul. So I believe we do that, and then we can bring the information to the referee, including giving the referee the result of the play so that he can make a proper announcement and the umpire can make a correct enforcement. But let's take a look at this action with the receiver first. And remember that defensive players have an equal right to the football as the offensive player, and if the one player or another does not get to an advantageous position first and then there's subsequent contact, then any other contact would be incidental in nature. So if we take a look at this again, you'll see that the defensive player, and it looks ugly, but remember that ugly is not necessarily illegal. We need to look at it with a set of eyes that tells us that, and a thought process and a philosophy that tells us that the defensive player has a right to this ball. And if you notice, the defender and the receiver are on the same yard line. The defensive back is not playing the man. He's playing the ball. He's looking back at the football, and they just so happen to just kick heels, tangle feet, and the receiver goes down. So as ugly as this is not a foul. The defensive player is looking back for the ball. As he turns to look for the receiver, they just so happen, again, to click feet. This is tangle feet. This is not a foul for defensive pass interference, although I understand why it would be called in real speed, real-time situations. I get it. But by rule, this is not enough for a foul. Now, the next thing I want you to look at here is the action by the left guard. He engages this tackle. All looks good, but then the defensive player, notice that he just goes to the ground like this, and defensive players just don't naturally just fall on the ground like that. This offensive player does a snatch down, and these are really hard fouls to get. I struggle with these, trying to get these, but umpires, our vision should be on this guard, especially because he's near the quarterback, and we should be picking up his hands, his feet, seeing what he's doing. And when he gets his hands inside the shoulder pads like that and snatches him to the ground, this would be enough for offensive holding. Again, really hard play overall, both the pass interference aspect as well as the offensive holding aspect. Really, really, really hard in real time. Get that totally. Just some considerations. First, tangle feet. We need to allow the defender to have an equal opportunity for the ball. If they're on the same yard line, he's not playing the man and they happen to tangle feet, that's not a foul. And then umpires, remember, the left guard is our key area of responsibility. And any player that gets close to the quarterback is a little bit more of a threat to foul or be fouled. So that's where our vision needs to be. And if we see this from the beginning, this block from the beginning, we would see that his hands get inside the uh, shoulder area, the shoulder pad area in the neck, and then he snatches him down. So this would be enough for offensive holding because it is at the point of attack. It has a material restriction on the player being blocked, and it is a category of takedown. So this would be enough for an offensive hold. So a lot of factors to take in. Again, really difficult play to officiate, but have a discussion with your crew on these aspects. On this play, really good mechanics and judgment and use of philosophy. So you'll see that this running back's hitting to the ground, ball comes out, we properly kill the clock, and then point that the defense has recovered. So this is excellent coverage and mechanics, very slow, patient whistle, and a nice use of judgment and philosophy. Remember, when in doubt, we're going to put the ball out because many times on these really close plays, the ball is on the way out. If we clearly see that the runner is down by rule prior to the ball becoming loose, then let's put him down. But if we're not sure, many times we let it play out, we're going to be correct. And if you look at this play, it's really tight. Holy cow, is it tight. And it goes to replay, which we have at our tournament. But I just like how we let it play out. We're really patient. We use that philosophy. And if, excuse me, if you go to really slow motion, tick, 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 you'll see that the ball is starting to move out of the runner's possession. He's losing control of the football prior to his rear end and leg hitting the ground. So therefore, this is a proper ruling for a fumble. This is excellent judgment, mechanics, use of philosophy. This is really well done to allow this to play out as a fumble. So if they're down by rule, put them down. If not, use this philosophy and we'll be in good shape. On this last play of our training tape series for the year, I just want to talk about red zone mechanics relative to our passing game coverage. So you see we have a pass here. It's 3rd and 14, so clearly a passing down. So we need to have that in our thought process, our pre-snap routine as this play is beginning and developing. Especially back judges, we need to be having that in our mind that is a likely play. Line of scrimmage, remember we are staying put until the pass is imminent with the snap coming from the 18-yard line. If we were at the 10-yard line, 11-yard line, something like that, we would be sliding to the 5. If it's inside the 5, we would be sliding to the goal line and then working backwards as necessary. So we do a good job of that here. Back judges, remember we're approximately 20 yards downfield at the start of the play. So we're going to be in the middle of the end zone on this particular play to start. Okay, we have our initial responsibilities and keys, but as this pass is going to be thrown, our shift in vision needs to go to the ball. That's now our responsibility as the back judge. We need to now shift that vision to the football and the receivers and defensive backs that are making a play on the ball. And because the end line is threatened here, once the ball is going to get halfway into the end zone or deeper, our position needs to be at the end line, because if this receiver were to sneak back there and have a toe tapper right at the end line, it would have been very difficult to get this play correct because of our positioning. And I know what happens. Sometimes we get caught focusing on our key receiver or key responsibility, and then a receiver coming from another area of the field kind of sneaks in on us. So I get how it happens, but what we should do is anytime that the ball is going to threaten the end line, we the back half of the end zone, we need to get to the end line, get stationary, and then view the play from there. So our preference mechanically on this play would be back judge, get to the end line, get stationary, and then view this play relative to interference, catch, no catch, and those kinds of things. So just some considerations for red zone mechanics, especially our back judges for pass coverage. But overall, in all of these prep bowl games, the officials did a really nice job. The clips that we went through this year, if there was any criticisms, many of them were really picky. We were really happy with the officiating in the prep bowls last year, and we anticipate some more great things this year at prep bowl as well. So nicely done by all of the crews in the prep bowl, and appreciate them for allowing us to learn from their games from last year as we went into this year's football season. Okay, as I mentioned, that will do it for the training tape series for the 2022 season. We've done a really nice job this year working through some of these things, making improvements in our mechanics and our philosophy, judgment as it relates to quality of fouls. And we've done that in partnership with each other, with the coaches, trying to provide a great experience for the kids to play high school football, because really there's nothing better than high school football. It's just a great experience, and it goes so fast, unfortunately. So appreciate all of you and your work. Let's get out there on the recruitment trail and bring some new folks into the fold. They'll really love high school football, and they'll see how infectious the love and the commitment there is to provide, again, that great experience for the kids. So appreciate your work, your diligence, and especially in looking at these tapes and having discussions and dialogues with your crew members about how we're going to cover certain situations, getting our nose in the rules book, the mechanics illustrated document, and so forth. I think that's really put us in a great position to be successful this year during the regular season and as we head in to the postseason. So really proud of all of you. Great work. Have a great postseason, and look forward to having you out on the field in 2023.